Hi my friends, welcome to the channel English Professionally, and I have a question for you. Are you really sure that you know the difference between was and were? Actually, there are some simple things and at the same time there are more tricky questions. Okay, let's look at this slide, let's look at this table and let's try to understand everything more clearly. Okay, some things are very simple. For example, if you see I, he, she, it, so you use was, right? So we're talking about past simple. We're talking about this tense. And if you see we, you, they, you need to use were. Look, it was such a beautiful place. So we use was with he, she, it. They were so friendly. So we use were with we, you, they. Okay, you see, it's a short test. You need to choose the correct answer. So it was interesting, right? They were really happy. Okay, so one more question for you. How will you say then use was or then use were surprising? Okay? So we mostly know that if we see s at the end of a noun, it's a plural form, so it's more than one, but in fact it isn't. If we're talking about this situation, so you need to remember that news is singular in English, it's one. So you need to say was, then use was shocking, was shocking. So the correct answer will be then use was surprising. Okay, next. His money, so was or were more than enough. Please think about it. His money was or were more than enough. You know that people often think that money is plural in English, but it isn't so. You need to remember that. So such words as use, money, it's singular in English, so it's one, and you need to use was, right? You see it here. So news was, money was. Yeah, absolutely correct. So his money was more than enough, right? So next, his knowledge, so what will you choose? His knowledge, so was or were too little. I don't know why, but students often say knowledges instead of knowledge, but this word doesn't exist in English, so it doesn't exist, and we need to say knowledge, okay? So his knowledge, okay, let's look at this table. So you see knowledge was, so this knowledge was too little. This knowledge was too little. His knowledge was too little. Okay, these things are very simple, you think, but there are more difficult things if we are talking about conditionals. So you see, sometimes you need to use was and sometimes you need to use were. So there are more difficult things if we are talking about conditionals. I hope you understand it. But if we look at past simple, so you need to know that, so we use be, so it's called a verb or in infinitive if it's to be, so it's was or were in past simple. it was or were in past simple. So I, he, she, it was, or wasn't if it's a negative form. For example, I wasn't satisfied with my result. I wasn't satisfied with my result or with this result. Okay, if it's we, you, they, so you need to use were or weren't. So I can tell you, for example, they weren't happy at all. They weren't happy at all. So you see it. Right, so was or wasn't, and were or weren't. But the most difficult is here. Yeah, so when you have another word or phrase instead of a pronoun. For example, so what will you choose? Was, were. For example, this knowledge. Enough. So you know that we say was if it's I, he, she, it, right? And we say were if it's we, you, they. Okay? But this situation is more difficult. So if you look at this table, you see that knowledge means was. So you need to use was. Was this knowledge enough? Okay, my friends, very good. Okay, let's talk about the most difficult thing, about conditionals and was or were. For example, so it depends actually whether this style is formal, neutral, or informal. Look, so if the style is informal or neutral, so we say were. And it doesn't matter I, he, she, it. For example, if I were you, I would do the same. Look, if I were you, or if I were you, I would do the same. So students often ask me, why do we need to use were? It's an exception. So we normally use were, it doesn't matter, so it's he, she, they. For example, if I were in this place, so I would do the same, right? I would do the same. So if he were in this place, it's okay. If she were in this place, so if it were in this place, so it's okay. And of course it's also okay if it's we, you, they. But I'd like to pay your attention to the fact that we use it with were. I mean I, he, she, it. It's an exception, it's a rule, so it's English grammar, and you can't ignore this fact. So if I were you, I would do the same. Okay, for example, one more. So if I were, or if I was, so what will you choose? I would, or I could help many poor people, for example. Maybe someone thinks so, right? So if I was, or if I were, if we look at this rule, we say I, he, she, it was, we, you, they were. But it's about conditionals. It's about conditionals. So we use, so I think you know that it's called the second conditional, and we use if plus past simple, and you know that was or were, so it's about past simple, and would or could plus verb, we have it in the second part. Right, so it's about the second conditional. And if we look at it, you need to use were. So the correct answer will be were. If I were, right, you don't forget to use an article, a millionaire, I could help many poor people if I were. Anyway, sometimes was can take place, so if it's about formal English, sometimes you can see if I was, for example, if I was there, I would take more radical measures. But actually we meet it actually not so often, much more rarely, and this, word was isn't common, with conditionals. But sometimes it can take place, if it's about a formal situation, but very rarely. So you need to pay attention to the fact that we need to use were. So really, my friend, it's a very important thing. So this subject seems very simple, and I believe that most students think only about the first things, the first and the second things, but there are deeper things like news, money, knowledge, some exceptions, and the most difficult thing, I believe, is about conditionals. Okay, let us know what you think about all this. Thank you, my friends. I really tried to be helpful. Thanks a lot, and I wish you good luck, my friends. Bye-bye. With he, she, it. They were so friendly. So we use were with we, you, they. Okay, you see, it's a short test. You need to choose the correct answer. There are more tricky questions. Okay, let's look at this slide, let's look at this table, and let's try to understand everything, more clearly. Okay, some things are very simple. For example, hi my friends, welcome to the channel English Professionally, and I have a question for you. Are you really sure that you know the difference between was and were? Actually, there are some simple things, and at the same time, if you see I, he, she, it, so you use was, right? So we're talking about past simple, we're talking about this tense. And if you see we, you, they, you need to use were. Look, it was such a beautiful place. So we use was